This continuation video on the El Camino 502 engine swap project. Just now at the kind of the stage of getting the chassis all finished up, detailed up, as much as we want to do it to put the engine in the car. So if you're following this, you'll realize this is a very low mile, nice car to begin with. So everything you kind of see here is pretty much the original patina on the car. Obviously the sway bar is a bigger one. You can see we kind of cleaned that up in there. We took a pressure washer to it, and what I did here is I kind of just went over it with some 3M adhesive remover and things like that. Cleaned up anything that was on it. You can see a Harrison sticker on the evaporator box, and there's the brake booster. All the anodization is still on there, and the windshield wiper motor. How nice those things are. And those are the clamshell bottoms of the motor mounts. We're going to go ahead and use these. These are still real good rubbers in there. So we're going to go with that. I just have a rag covering up the holes on the power steering box there. So the only thing that's original that I'm going to change is the shocks. And I'm going to change the shocks when I determine how the front end's going to sit with the 502 in there. Which I said we've got maybe 40 pounds of difference according to the calculations of the difference of the two motors. So if the car sits a little too low, I'm going to put some KYBs, which will push up on the car a little bit more. If it sits a little, if it sits normal, I'll run Bilsteins in it, so they don't push up quite as hard as the KYBs. So you'll get about an inch out of those KYBs if you put them in there. But so we're running the small block springs because the aluminum head, aluminum intake 502 over there is definitely lighter than the all cast iron 454 motors. And here's an aftermarket part. This is Summit Racing cross member for the A bodies, I think 73 to 77s, and so it's the double exhaust because that's the original down there, which was set up for the single exhaust and the catalytic converter. So obviously we can't use that. A lot of people have customized those, put a hump in them, done everything, but I guess for the money that this is a nice piece, and we got it in there, actually bolted it in. I'm gonna leave the mount off because the transmission's going in with the motor, so we're gonna tilt it back, and then we'll probably have to put a board under the pan here to lift that up and get it in the angle there to put it all in there. So that's kind of that. So you kind of see the car underneath it, how nice this little thing is. And of course it's got that's the back of it. And we put if you followed another video, we put the rear sway bar on it because the El Caminos of any of these series don't come with the rear sway bars. The wagons didn't, and the El Caminos didn't. So that's off of a, like a Malibu with the FE2 suspension package. So that's the good one. And so we had to drill the holes for the sway bar mounts and the mounting pieces and put those in there. Wasn't too hard, but I've done a lot of those in my days. So here's kind of the difference in the El Camino frame's a little stronger, and the wagon frame's a little stronger than the four-door sedan or the two-door A bodies from 73 to 77. What the difference is, I really don't know, but even in all these cars, the center sections are not boxed, but they're thick. These are real thick metal. And I have a 74, so there's people that have seen 74s, that I had a 74 big block car originally, and it had a piece right here that came out that would, I guess, adapt probably a 68 to 72 cross member in there. And that's just the way that 74 frame was. And I'm not sure if that's a difference in the year or the difference. I understand there was two frame manufacturers for these cars. One guy said it was Bud Wheel that made some of the frames, and the other one's GMC themselves plant. So that's probably just a difference on the different types of frame or different places they were made. But other than that, I think all your 73 to 77 El Camino wagon and and El Camino frames are the same. So, and you know, comparing these to your earlier cars, like your 6872s, these are definitely stronger. This whole rear section is definitely gonna take more abuse under more power and torque than your 6872 car. So of course these are a bit heavier car also, so good upsides and downsides to all of it. I'll drop it down so you can see what the under the hood looks like now with the engine out and detailed up fairly well. So again, I got to do this one-handed here, so lift the two levers one hand. Okay, here we go. And I've mentioned the tires before. Those things are almost brand new old stock tires, but they are older. We'll see how the 255/60s on the 8-inch Corvette wheels. So we'll see how they do under a 502. Probably not great, but this is a 273 rear end, so I'm not gonna go crazy with it. And if I ever change the gears up to quicker, it'll get a 4-speed automatic at that point, because anything above 273 is just on a big block's not very good on the highway. Just twisting those torque motors, and they don't need to do that. So 273 on a big block is a great ratio on a 3-speed automatic. They have so much torque, you can just, you don't need that 4th gear. And well, you have the 4th gear because it is 273, and you don't need the 1st gear, so to use the torque. But anyway, that's kind of the cleanup under this. Have the light under it, so it's kind of exaggerating everything. And basically all we did is clean it off, wipe it off. That's the original, I guess, paint coating or whatever they did on the frame down there. And I have taken a very light, just on the frame part down there, satin clear, which is that right there, and just kind of done that to just this area under the A-frame and some of the top rails over there, just to kind of keep it looking that way. Everything else is, nothing's been painted. That's all the original stuff there. Firewall, some of those wires were a little dirty. I cleaned those up, just using 3M adhesive remover. It looks a lot cluttered now because you have the wiring harness there. It's just tied back. So that'll all go down and be in place when the motor's put in. So that's that. And that's kind of what they look like. And you know, you could make it a show car and really gloss up those frames, but I think you're just taking away from this car's originality and how nice it is without having to do that. So that's kind of it. And we'll go back to the motor. The motor is really about ready to go in. Here we have carburetors just sitting on there because there's the fuel line. That is a LS6 fuel line for the LS6 pump, so it's all mechanical. Goes up there, has the double hookups. These are 3/8 and then 5/16 lines there. So if you're using a regular Holly like this, you have to actually change these to fit the 5/16 for that system. That's a factory piece there. The air condition is right here. I've got that all mocked up here, and the right, because I'm not going to put the motor in with the compressor attached to it. It's just in the way, so we don't need to do that. And of course the headers won't be attached to it when the motor goes in either. I just have 2 bolts holding them in place there, but all of this is in place. And I had a hell of a time with this power steering bracket, and I ordered these pieces from ss396.com, and they all look great. I don't know if they're actually new or restored factory pieces or not, or what they are. To me, I think they're actually a restored factory piece, but I don't know. That's the lower one there. And so what happened, I put that on there, and I could never get that power steering pump to line up right. I mean, everything, all the bolts and holes were in the right place, but it was just so far off. When you looked at those belts, this is off here, so that makes it a little crooked because I don't have the fan on it. The fan's right there. So it's straight, but with that bracket there, I even tried to shim it I tried to do all sorts of things to straighten that power steering pump up in its alignment, and I think it must just be either built wrong or maybe it's tweaked or bent the way I got it. So anyway, what I did is I got one off of I had one off a big block truck kit, and that's a factory piece, and the only difference is it didn't have the same hole here for the back mount, so I went ahead and drilled that hole in the right place, and lo and behold, that straightened it all up. So, but all the rest of the stuff is nice. These are nice pieces here. That's, like I said, all the brackets came from that. And this bracket had to be modified for this water pump. I think I showed that in the previous video, to run on the Edelbrock water pump. And we got the hose clamps. I hadn't put those on yet because I'm gonna use the tower clamps, the correct ones for this era, just in case I have to take it off the water pump, putting the motor in, but I don't think so. It's all there ready to go, in hopes that will go in. I'm gonna put the power steering lines on the pump side when I drop it in there, just to keep that out of the way. And I've got what I'm blocking this off here with a plug, because this is just too far back, and I'm gonna run the shorter, I have that on order, oil sending unit, the shorter oil sending unit right here. And the reason is that's just asking for it back there. So the correct small block positions, on the small blocks are back in this area. So they're not as hard. The big block, that's just, way back there. So I'm gonna plug that up with I believe that's a 1/2 inch NPT plug, and run that output there. Now the El Camino, this car does have the gauge package to it, but it's got, the voltmeter, it's got the temperature gauge, it's got all the other good stuff, but they're idiot lights for oil. So that's just an idiot light gauge, and I'm just gonna run it that way for now, because keep that all stock on the inside. Through here, we're gonna have power brake output here. I'm actually gonna use the metal line. I'm gonna sneaker cheat it and cut it and just put some fittings on that. This I'll figure out later because we have the cruise control, we have the air condition control for inside the car. The vacuum goes inside the car for that. A few other things that have to be hooked up. What else? That's it. Like to run an oil cooler on this once we get it all installed, because I'm going to run a big transmission cooler, because we're using a DeWitt's radiator for this thing. So, but on a Mark 5 or 6, they actually have the cooling lines for the motor right here. You can see this. You can input and output for your oil cooler, which is nice. And I've used that on some other motors a lot, but look at this header. That's going to be a nowhere, know-how possibility. So probably have to use the old style sandwich adapter on this. Ignore that filter. It's just there for having a filter on it right now. That'll be taken off and chunked when we put the motor in the car. That's why it looks so ugly. So that'll be an addition, but I'm not going to initially start it up with that. I'm going to start it up just with a regular no oil cooler. That's kind of it. Got the MSD timing mark for the 8-inch balancer on there, just to make it a little easier. What else? That's kind of it. So yeah, all the belts are in place. The fan can be put on right here. That's the way it's going to kind of go in the car, other than I'm going to take the carburetor off, obviously, and the distributor comes out. It's just sitting in there just for looks. PCV will be right here. So we'll have the angled, or the 90-degree PCV right there. And back here, depending on what air cleaner we use, probably going to be the typical drop Holley setup. And we'll see what we get for hood clearance. And the motor will fit under the hood. I just don't know what size air cleaner yet. We'll determine that when we get it in there. And I'm going to go with a theme that matches kind of this, probably with a, Chevy 502 sticker or something that looks the same as the valve covers. But we'll see. And there's your other side header, which, you know, obviously totally different than the driver's side for these cars. And you know, these are, I call them shorties, but they're actually intermediates. It's the best, the Sanderson BB3s, which I think are going to be the best option for this, because I've gone to the full length. And what else? That's kind of it. Got some tools, just not a good idea. I'll put those back on the bench, make it look a little nicer there. But that's your vacuum advance there, which that's the ZZ 502 distributor, which it has a 10-degree vacuum pot in there. So if you're going to run a stock one, make sure you do run a 10-degree, because some of those things go up to, you know, 20 or 30. And when you hook that vacuum up, it just jacks your timing up so much. And then you end up running kind of rough when it's so advanced under vacuum. So you want to run a 10-degree maximum, I think, on this motor, or any of these big blocks, even a stock one, we run 10-degree pots on them. What else? That's kind of it. So there's the car, there's the motor, and the transmission is on a cart, and it'll bolt up once we start taking this off here and go in with it. So the next video I do will be with this thing hanging from our forklift, getting ready to go into the car, and hopefully all goes well from there. So wish me luck, because this is kind of what I've been working for a while, to get all this stuff right, and no telling what other kind of hang-ups and hiccups we'll have, but we'll see. There always is going to be something. Anyway, thanks for watching.